How's it going, everybody? It is time for yet another review, and we're taking a closer look at Resident Evil 8 The Village. So let's find out if it's really worth that $60 price tag. Oh, and one more thing. Welcome to the night shift. Let's get you guys clocked in. How's it going, everybody? It is I, your one and only shift leader, Logan, and it is time to take a deep look into Resident Evil 8 and find out if it's really worth your time and money. Now, before we get into this, I wanted to get a few things clear. First off, if you don't like scary games, or if you don't like really bloody or just kind of gory games, this is by far not in your realm, so definitely steer clear of it. But uh, if you are interested in those scarier kind of games, but have always steered clear because it just seemed too much for you, this might be more your speed. And we'll dive in a little bit later and talk about how that kind of is. Then for the final thing, we are doing not only a review for this game, but we are also doing a playthrough series. And the gameplay that you'll be seeing here is part of that. And what I have done is I have played quite a bit of it and pre-recorded so that I wasn't playing just like an hour and then giving you guys like a just first impressions. I wanted to give this game some time, play it, make sure that everyone knew what was up and whether or not the game, like how the game actually plays, I would say midway through. Because I'm looking at roughly about, I would say about 5 to 6 hours in. So I'm pretty good chunk in. But that all being said, I have really enjoyed my time with Resident Evil 8 The Village. And it's interesting because I if you've been with us on our channel before, you know that I've played through Resident Evil 7, and I liked 7 for what it was, and it was scary, and I was always feeling that blood pumping scary moment. And coming into 8, it's a very different kind of game. It's still scary. It still has those moments that get you, but on the other side of it, it kind of abandons a lot of what 7 had. And they talked about that, you know, after they released it. And a lot of it was public feedback of, oh no, 7 was way too scary. Like, people wouldn't play it. And I'll be honest, it was a struggle for me to play it because it was so scary. And I feel like a lot of people would struggle with 7 to play. But this game, like I said in the beginning, it's pretty easy for people to kind of get introduced to this kind of genre, horror in general. But let's dive in a little closer and find out, where this all scores, right? So, if you haven't joined us for one of our reviews before, we score this on 4 categories. We have story, gameplay, audios and visuals, and then any bugs or glitches that we ran across the way. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, story is really interesting. I'm really enjoying the lore and the intricacy of the story that's going on now. Now, that being said, if you are a die-hard Resident Evil fan, you're gonna find little things here and there, maybe, but You kind of almost have to take this game as it is. Like this is, clearly a vampire game. This is, clearly a werewolf game, and so you're dealing with that. And really, when you just kind of focus in on that, it's a fun game. It's a fun playthrough. And then, of course, you have that, like I said, this is a continuation of the Resident Evil 7 story to an extent. I'm not 100% sold on it, but it's still pretty cool. I've really enjoyed the story and especially to where I've gotten. Now, going on to gameplay, it literally plays just like Resident Evil 7, if not a little smoother. I think they took some lessons from 7 and learned to do it better. One of my favorite things that they have improved upon is they got rid of that stupid designated slot for weapons. That was one of the most frustrating things I hated about Resident Evil 7. You could only have 4 weapons at any given time, and so you were constantly having to swap in and out. Now, mind you, you're still going to have to do some weapon swapping and inventory management in this game. That's just part of this. But it is far less like I ran into a situation where there was another gun that I could grab, but inventory was telling me that I didn't have enough space. Well, I went in there and I was looking, I was like, I should have enough. And after moving stuff around and condensing it down, I was able to just move it right in and have it in my inventory. So that is one of my favorite things about additions, to cleaning up the gameplay a little bit. But I also feel like, and this is just me personally, I feel like they've toned down the difficulty level of this game from 7 immensely. Coming off of 7, I play all my games story mode wise at normal first, and then if I'm really digging in a challenge, I'll go to a higher difficulty. But I always try to get that recommended difficulty, which is usually just normal or, whatever, medium, whatever they call it. But to me, it feels immensely easier. I don't have that constant moment where I'm like, oh my god, I barely survived. Oh my god, if I do not be careful in this next room, I'm going to die. And there's probably still quite a bit of game left for me to play. And so that could all very well change. But from my point that I'm at now, and like I said, being about, I would say about 5 hours, 5 to 6 hours in, and that's just me kind of probably also dilly dallying and, not figuring out things as quickly as I probably should. I have found that it just doesn't seem as difficult. Now, that being said, that's just comes to the combat side. Puzzles, difficult as all get out. I've had time and time and time again difficulty with figuring out where this is, what do I do here, how to do that. That has been the, you know, main difficulty is just the puzzles. They've kept that a very very high difficulty. So now I also want to touch on, and I kind of wanted to leave it in between story and gameplay a little bit. I wanted to talk about the voice the voice acting or acting in general because I feel like it affects the overall not just story, but then just the gameplay as well. I came into this and I was like, oh, it's the same characters, so I'm gonna be invested, which I am to an extent. However, I don't know who wrote the script or who decided it, but the acting in this is really rough. It is really rough. I mean, our character that we play, Ethan Winters, says some of the dumbest things I've ever heard him say, and I just kind of sit there and go like, you literally survived a horrible, horrible experience once already, and you sounded bad to the bone the entire time you were going through that. And now here you are in this, and you are just a whine baby. And I gotta give him some credit. It has been 3 years since then, but still, like, going by the story at the very beginning, after you're picked up there, you're like with Chris Redfield, and you're training every day. You're, you know, you are not like by any means just a regular old civilian. Just like, oh yeah, went through that terrible experience, but yeah, it's all over now. No, as far as I'm aware, you're anything but that. But I digress. That I just kind of wanted to touch on that, just so that everyone kind of understands that. Yeah, for me, it just wasn't hitting, and I kind of found myself laughing in moments where I think they were trying to go for a more like serious tone. But segueing off of that into audios and visuals, man, does this game look good. It really, really looks great. And, uh, you know, I'm not going to lie, it was a little weird seeing Mia again here at the beginning and everything like that, and Chris Redfield, because it was like, holy cow, y'all look different. And it's not because their characters are different. It's just that literally they're designed and textured so much more, and they just look better. So that's a big plus for me. Not to mention audios for this game, aside from the voice acting, have been really spot on. And I'm not saying all the voice acting. A lot of the voice acting for this game is super real, like super good. There are a lot of people in this, like, characters in this game that are super interesting and do their own thing, and I really enjoy it. It's just, for me, I don't know why. It's just, it really comes down to Ethan and Mia and their whole dynamic. I don't know. It just seemed weird to me. That that all being said, music fantastic. Other just random like sound effects, like guns going off, your footsteps and everything like that, really good. Especially having headphones in, because the surround kind of like 3D audio that they try and do is really good. So all that being said, right, where does Resident Evil 8 fall for us? And like I said, I highly, highly recommend giving this game a try if you're interested in horror, or if you're a big horror fan, or if you're just looking for a new game, because this game is super fun to play. But again, I know that there are a lot of people out there that don't like all the blood and gore, or the more realistic violence, and I know there are some people that don't like horror. Believe me, I get it. So if that's you, don't worry about it. This skip over this game. There's going to be more coming soon. I promise you that. But for this game, I think the story is really interesting, and there's a lot of interesting characters. So it has me really interested in playing. So I'm gonna give story probably a solid like. I almost want I. You can say that I'm just being copying the title, but I want to say an 8, and then I want to give gameplay. I want to say I'm going to give it a 9 just for the fact that they improved upon something that was already good. So you've got an 8 and a 9, and then turn around audio and visuals. I'm going to say like an 8.5, and I really honestly didn't run into any glitches along the way. So we're looking at a solid 8.5 for Resident Evil 8, ironically. And I think it's a well-deserved score. So, but that's all I've got for Resident Evil 8, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Be on the lookout for our Resident Evil playthrough series. I'll see you guys next time.